So, just a little bit about me. I'm a monkey hanger. I'm from a place called Hartlepool, if anybody knows Hartlepool. A little bit about Hartlepool is it has a nuclear power station. It elected a monkey for its elected mayor, and they had that elected mayor for 10 years. He did a great job. He offered free bananas to every school child as part of his manifesto. People voted for him. And it was the home to a guy called John Darwin, who you may recall went in his canoe off in the North Sea and was next seen in Panama. 18 years later, he actually still lived in Seaton Crew, where I grew up, and was hidden behind a wall for 18 years. But anyway, Hartlepool are also a Jadu customer, apparently. I've been in local government now for 11 years. I started just round the corner, actually, in Westminster, then went down to West Sussex, now up at Swindon, and my mum's convinced I'm on my way home, but we'll see. I'm currently running some of our corporate services in Swindon, performance comms, HROD, election services, democratic services, but for the last sort of 2 years, I've been running a cross-council service redesign programme, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So I can't go anywhere without talking about Swindon and talking up Swindon, so just a little bit, if you'll just humour me, a little bit about Swindon. So, anybody know about the Magic Roundabout? It's the most incredible thing. It's like dancing in your car. It's amazing. You go around it. It's brilliant. It's absolutely fab. Billy Piper's from Swindon. Diana Dawes. I don't know whether any of you, probably all too young. That one's for you, Siraj. Julian Clary. Melinda Messenger. Luminaries of stage and screen. Mark Lamar. The Spitfire was actually built for some time in Swindon, many, many years ago. And it was also where Embark Kingdom Brunel chose to build a lot of the railway network from, because it was equidistant between London and Bristol. So we've got an awful lot of sort of railway heritage up in Swindon. The other thing, that is the Oasis Leisure Centre, where Mark told me last night he used to go swimming for 5 years as a kid. And the reason why the Oasis Leisure Centre, it's just a leisure centre, is relatively famous, it's the reason why Oasis are called Oasis. So Oasis saw a poster for the Inspiral Carpets, and they were playing at the Oasis Leisure Centre and decided that's what they'd call their band. So that's the story. So Swindon now, Swindon's growing, it's massive, it's home to a number of different massive organisations, Honda, Nationwide, Zurich, Cisco, BMW, and my particular favourite, the Space Agency, are all based out of Swindon. And it's the 7th fastest growing city in the country, despite not actually being a city. And in the 1980s, it was the fastest growing town in Europe, and it really feels like it. It's sprawling, it's big, the town centre's got lost in all of that. A really interesting fact for me about Swindon is it's the largest, it's got the largest population of Goan residents anywhere outside of India. And it's our third most spoken language in Swindon is Konkani, which is the language of the Goan population. We have almost full employment, about 45 minutes to London from next year with electrification, so if anybody's thinking that London's too expensive for them, they should think about moving to Swindon. Massive expected growth, we're building 22,000 houses over the next 10 years. And can I just ask you a question, how many of you have got an iPhone? Potentially the SIM card in your iPhone was made in Swindon. Despite this, bizarrely, it's a place of quite low aspiration. Our GCSE results are poor. A much lower than average number of our children go off to university. And at the moment, one of our concerns is around AI and machine learning and what that might mean for our job market in the future. But just in case you are of the mistaken view that Swindon is a bit of a shithole, it really is not. This is what you find when you come to Swindon. It's absolutely fantastic. That's a Lydiard House and Park, and it's absolutely beautiful, and one of the many cultural assets that we have. So, a little bit about Swindon Council. This will get me shot, is that on? Right. Once upon a time, back in the early 80s and early 90s, Swindon was deemed to be the worst council in the country officially, CPA ratings, all of that. And it's massively improved since then. But when I joined, we had a tea lady, right? And the tea lady would come round every day. She'd ring a bell, and everybody would wander over like Pavlov's dogs, salivating for their stodgy sandwiches. And we went out for a drink probably about 2 months after I arrived. And we played this silly game called Two Bullets. I don't know if anybody's ever played it, but it's so cathartic. Basically, you pick two people in the organisation, either for the good of the organisation or your own mental health, you choose to put a bullet through. And mine was the tea lady. And there was gasps, because the tea lady was much loved. And I said my reason was that I think it indicated the sort of organisation we were at the time, old-fashioned, a bit paternalistic, quite lazy because nobody could be bothered to get off their arse and go and buy the sandwich from the town centre. So the tea lady, she's still alive, but she no longer works at the council. And this was a common sight, so it convinced me more than anything when I arrived back in 2014, that the place really needed modernising. But the motivation for modernising wasn't there except for me in our senior management team, apart from me and a guy called Glyn Peach, who you've probably all heard of before. And he was our new head of IT at the time. He started 2 months before me. And instead the council was much more focused on things like closing sort of facilities. So we had, and this isn't a criticism of it, a lot of councils did the same, but we looked at how many libraries we needed, we looked at how many children's centres we needed, we looked at our daycare provision, all of those sorts of things. We pushed a lot of our services quite cleverly out to parishes because we couldn't afford to run them ourselves to protect them, but we didn't look at our own internal processes. So all that changed in early 2017, when changes in personnel at our more senior level meant that there was more new senior managers who came from other places and thought, you've got a shed load of paper here, there's something quite wrong with the way we do things. And they recognised, like Glyn and I, that we had a long way to go to be modern, effective and efficient. And this will be my first lesson. You cannot embark on a programme of modernisation, whether digital or not, if you don't have senior buy-in. If you don't have your senior team right at the top of the table, beside you, behind you, in front of you, you've got no chance. So, at this point, we brought in one of the big 4 consultancy companies to do a quick and dirty diagnostic for us about what we needed to do. And this was before we knew methods at the back. What they told us was kind of what we already knew, but it gave us a bit of an analytical rigour and clout with our members. And my second lesson would be don't spend a fortune on these people. They did a great job for us. We spent a very small time-boxed amount of money, but you can burn a lot. And my advice would be don't. Just do enough to get your prognosis and make people listen. Thank you. So, mid-2017, something called the Swindon programme was born in Swindon. 30 million savings in 30 months. Sounds horrendous, and it has been. The chief exec asked me to lead the most exciting stream of work. There was 4 streams, and this was the organisational excellence bit, which was the internally focused, looking at what we needed to do. And what she said to me when she asked me to do it was, you've banged on about this long enough, just go and do it. We need to sort it out. And that was fantastic. But my lesson 3 would be careful what you wish for. Now this is the bit I'm dreading because there's a bit of technology in this bit. So, the OE programme, the core of it was around service redesign, improving connectivity between customers and services through connected line of business systems. There were also work streams on leadership and culture, estates rationalisation, which you can't do when you've got the amount of paper that we had clogging the place up. And from June to October of 2017, we set about developing our first followers. Those people who were going to sort of legitimise the programme. Oh, there you are. So this is your first bloke, right? That's me. That was Crazy Me, OE programme. This is your first follower. You see him? What he's doing is he's making me not look like a nutter. Right? And they all dance merrily, but people still think they're a bit weird. And they think they're mad, and they fall over. And everybody's just like, what are these crazy people doing, banging on about digitisation, they're talking absolute nonsense. Until other people start to join. See, other people joining in now? And that's what we did to legitimise the programme. I spent absolutely ages going around the organisation with people like Cara from Swindon, getting other people to join in. I took this from a TED talk. But then all of a sudden you've got a movement, you've got a bunch of people, and it's very difficult to ignore. So we deliberately spent absolutely ages legitimising the craziness because there was people who thought we were mad. We asked for ideas, we asked for guinea pigs, and we asked for experience from elsewhere. And this is my theory about local government. In local government, you've got two types of people. You have organisational meerkats, which you all are because you're here, and you have organisational cockroaches who want nothing to change but will survive a nuclear blast. And the only way you can succeed is if you get more of these. So my lesson 4 is keep it all accessible, find common points of interest and help people see themselves and their actions in the programme. Find your organisational meerkats. And one of the things we really struggled with in the early days was helping staff on the front line and staff who aren't managers, who didn't have the sort of autonomy to say, let's change these processes. We struggled to find a way to help them see themselves in the programme. But one of the things we'd said, one of our lofty ambitions was to go from 15 million pieces of paper being printed to 1 million. So what we did is we created a league table, and you could find yourself, it wasn't a league table, but you could find yourself on how much paper you're using and track your trend in your paper usage. And I started off thinking the unions will hate it, we'll get into trouble, people will say it's unfair because people have to print. And no one did, but everybody liked the fact they could see what the implications of their actions were doing for the programme. So that was really, really important for us. So it was at this point that we brought methods in to help us with our digital aspirations, and they helped us with a short piece of work to identify our digital opportunities in our front-facing services. So John, I really empathise with you around the massive long list that you start off with, because that's where we were. What they brought us and what methods brought us in was some extra experience, capacity, extra resilience and support, and I would highly recommend bringing in a partner. It was also a real partnership, and we shared in each other's successes. When we had a bad day, they had a bad day. When they had a success, we had a success. And I think at that point, we developed this digital hub team. Cross-disciplinary, we brought in some people. We advertised 3 secondments for business analysts. And we brought 3 people in from across the council, and alongside some of these guys. Richard there with the glasses is one of our secondees. And methods trained them in agile methodologies and service redesign techniques. And that would be my lesson 5. Train as many of your own as you can and keep your skills in-house. So we were off on our own at this point for a bit. Methods came in and did the training, and then we said, oh, look, and they gave us a bit of a diagnostic around where we could start. And we thought, we'll do this. We're all right, we've got it. Off we go. Got all these people. So we were off. We thought, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And then we stalled, and I got hugely frustrated. John and Cara and Kevin will tell you how frustrated I got. And the reason I got frustrated is it felt like we weren't moving, and I couldn't work out why. And then I realised that we were treating everything exactly the same. So whether one person used a process or needed a form, or 2,000, 10,000 did, we were giving each process exactly the same amount of time. So we got stuck at food safety, and we had 37 processes in food safety, and we were giving a form to each and every one of them, rather than going, this is the amount of time we've got, what are the most important things to do them and move on. And perfect was getting in the way of good, quite frankly. So at that point, we brought methods back and said, right, give us a hand. We created 3 little service redesign teams with a methods member of staff and one of our business analysts, and we went around the council doing discovery workshops. And we got up some momentum, and we were motoring by then. And we knew this because everyone was talking about digital and what digital meant and it would do for them. And some of the stuff people were saying was frankly ludicrous. It got to the point where, we can't do clear desk until we've got a new system. We can't do any efficiency improvements until we've got that new system. And my particular favourite at that point was our Ofsted inspection will be fine providing we get a new system. That was my favourite. So we had to temper expectations of what new digital kit would bring and try to get our managers to think more about their service offer, their relationship with their customers, their focus on their customers, and their focus on getting the stuff that they could write first time, because we had so much failure demand through our system. And actually getting them to focus on cultural change and how they change the mindset of some of their staff. But that's lesson 6. So lesson 7, we really did struggle with our strategic approach to our line of business systems, and I think we still are, if I'm honest. My advice to you would be, without sounding patronising, because you've probably all done this brilliantly well, As you embark on big service redesign, be clear about your objectives, about your use of IT. All of our line of business systems were out for contract, every single one of them, and we had to put them all through this horrendous procurement process, which I still quite frankly don't understand. But we didn't get it quite right, I don't think, and so we didn't sequence our redesign work as effectively as we might have. We'd also chronically underinvested in IT for many, many years. It had been in a partnership with one of the private sector providers, which I won't name. And and we brought it back out. So making the business case for new systems was really difficult, especially when we had no money. And we weren't comparing apples with pears, but I spent more hours with Cara, more hours than I could count trying to make the case for investment when the business case didn't necessarily stack up because we were at such a low base to start off with. So I really would say be really clear about your objectives around your use of IT. So, working with methods across 3 multidisciplinary teams, we developed business cases that identified £4 million worth of savings, but we were supposed to hit 7. And it was short, and we got stuck on the buy-in. We had some managers who were organisational cockroaches. We had some who just weren't prepared to take any risks. And we had some who just genuinely couldn't, wanted to work in this way, but couldn't see a different world. The only thing that shifted was when we decided we had to give managers targets for the rest of the savings that we needed to find. And we should have done it from the beginning. I'll come back to that. But suddenly everybody wanted a piece of the digital team. Methods had never been more popular. Even Marcus, is Marcus still here? Lovely Marcus, was really hugely popular. Everybody wanted a piece of Marcus. But by this point, we were about 4/5 of the way through our work with them, and we'd got quite a lot of our business cases. And I think had we put the offer of a carrot, which was the digital hub team and the methods team, along with a stick, which was you need to find this amount of savings, we'd probably have got a completely different amount of buy-in. And that's something that I really think that we kind of missed a trick there, really. I'll come back to that. And linked to that, over the course of the last year and a half, it has felt like the only people who've been sitting on the burning platform of 30 million in 30 months are me and Glyn, and obviously the digital hub team. When we introduced targets, that burning platform got very crowded, and I felt really relieved. And what I would say is you've got to make sure that there are as many people on that burning platform and understand the real nature of the journey you've got to go on as possible. And if they don't, you've got to find a way to make them. So finally, to sum up what has been an absolutely fantastic 18 months for somebody as nosy as me, I know more about the council than I ever thought I would. What I would say is design a programme that fits your organisational culture now, not the culture that you want it to be. So the Swindon programme was absolutely really well-meaning, and to be fair, we found the 30 million. Children's have overspent by an extra 5, so we've got to find another 5, but we have found the 30 million, or identified it at least. But what we didn't do is think, how will the organisation respond to this? And we put quite a sophisticated programme in, which was bottom up. Tell us where you can make savings, where you can make efficiencies, how can you make your service better for your customer and save money? And there was, in quite a lot of places, relatively stunned silence. When we said, how can you manage your service with X amount less money? People came flocking. And we should have done that from the very beginning, but we wanted it to be more collaborative, and the organisation wasn't ready for it. So that's what I would say for lesson 10. And finally, my advice to anyone embarking on this digital or not redesign journey: set targets and they'll come. Create a shared burning platform. Understand what's most important to your organisation. This is really important to me. Is it saving money? Is it improving customer services? Is it caring for the most vulnerable? It can be all of those things, but at some point you'll have to make a choice. And we found that very difficult. Understand what you want to do and spend on your IT infrastructure. Design your programme to suit your organisation's culture. Find and love some more, your first followers. And finally, enjoy it. I've had an absolutely brilliant time. That's it. Was I all right for time?